Right, so the get associative array is probably one of the more useful functions, if you like, of PHP. Now, when you're looking at a standard web page, now there's nothing in this file at the moment, but I'm just going to open up the browser. The file name is index.php. So I'm running index.php. In web pages, you may have seen a URL look somewhat similar to this. Okay, now what I've actually done now is I've passed a key called name with the value Alex to this page. So I'm passing data to this page using the notation with a question mark, then the variable name, and then equaling, so you're assigning a value of Alex to this. You can also then use an ampersand symbol to apply other variables, and so on. Okay, so for now I'm just using name equals Alex and age equals 21. Now this is the get associative array that's passed through a URL. However, there is an alternative which is post, and I do have a tutorial on that as well. But for now we're going to be focusing on get. What we're going to do in this tutorial is we're going to pick up on these variables, we're going to display them on our page, and then we're going to create a simple form that allows, for the first time, the user to enter, say, their name and their age, and then for it to be displayed back to them. The usefulness of this is that we can take the name, we can take the age, and we can do a variety of things with it. The variables are no longer specified in our script. As we've been doing in past tutorials, we've said name equals Alex, but in actual fact now our variable name is going to look something like this. We use $ and then underscore and get in capitals, and then we use square brackets and the key name. Now the key name here is name, and then we have age. So what we can do is we can specify another variable, we can use the same structure, and age. Now this is essentially now picked up on these two variables. If we refresh the page, obviously nothing happens. We haven't decided what we want to do with these variables yet, but what I'm going to simply do is just echo them out in a sentence. So I can say I am, and then a name, so I can concatenate on name to there, completing the sentence, and I am age, concatenate years old. So what we're doing is we're basically echoing out the variables that we have got using this structure. So if we refresh the page, you can now see that it reads I am Alex and I'm 21 years old. And obviously what we can do is we can change these values up here, and then they'll correspond to the variables we've picked up and echoed out on this page. So now you can see why, if you didn't know how or what these were before, these are just simply variables that are being passed to the page, and this is using the get associative array. It's also sometimes called the get function, and it is in fact a variable. So it's a variable, obviously we start with the $sign here, so that's what gives the clue away, but it is an associative array, and you can tell this by these square brackets, much like an array that we've used before. When we've created arrays, we always work with square brackets. Okay, so we've found out now that we can pass these to the page, but what if we wanted to create a form to do this for us? So what I'm going to do is, let's say we can either do it above or below. I'm going to start to create a form. So obviously I don't have all my HTML tags in or whatnot, but just to keep this short and simple, action equals index.php, method equals get. If you've programmed in HTML before or written HTML before, you'll now understand what method is. So method equals get. We're passing the variables from this form using the method get. Okay, so we need to create two form fields. The first one's going to be called name. I'm going to line break down, and the input type is text. The name, this is very important, is name. This here needs to match this here. If we just comment this out quickly. Ooh. I can show you how this submits. Okay, and then we'll break down and we can say, let's just change that, break down and say age, break down, input type equals text, make this one maybe a bit smaller, we'll say 5, and the name again is age, which corresponds, this value here corresponds to this. It's vitally important that you keep these the same. And then we can double break down and we can create a submit button. So that's submit and value equals submit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh this page. Let's just get rid of that. Now bear in mind our form is submitting to itself. So we're submitting it to index.php, which is the page that we're currently working with. And eventually this code here is going to pick up what we've typed into the form. Now the form is, all the form is doing is it's basically putting this in for us. Name equals like whatever they want to put in there, and so it'll be something there, and then it will be age equal and age equals something there. So our form is essentially going to do that for us. So if you watch, I'm going to type in my name, I'm going to type in my age. When I do click submit, have a look at the top URL, you can see that that's put them straight in for us. Now we obviously want to do something with these, so we can uncomment this out. Now it's automatically going to pick up on these variables because we've named this here the same. They both correspond to the variables that need to be picked up. So as we submit the form now, let's just delete this. Okay, so at the moment we're faced with this problem that we're already echoing out the text. Let me just show you the example of this, and then we can fix this error in a minute that's just that's bringing it up even though we haven't got anything submitted. So if we click submit, you can see that that says I am Alex and I'm 21 years old. So this is basically how this form is going to work, and it's submitting get variables here. Now we're faced with this problem where when we have the index.php page on its own and we haven't submitted anything, we're getting this problem here. Now if we give the submit button a name, in fact let's do this another way. A much better way to do this would be to create an input type of hidden, and the name of this is going to be submitted, and the value is going to be true. So basically when the form is submitted, this will be carried along with it. And what we can do is in actual fact, in this example I think it would be better to check for the name and age, and then we can deliver a message to the user depending on if they haven't entered their name or their age. So I'm going to say if, and then I'm going to create this in a block of an if statement. We need a condition here to check if name and age both exist. So what I want to do is I want to say if is set, and then in brackets name. That checks if the variable is set first of all, not that if it's empty or if it's empty, it's just going to check if it's set. And is set age. Okay, now this basically checks if it's set. So if we return to our index.php page, this will go. Now if I type nothing, for example, and I click submit, we're still producing this result because even though we haven't typed anything in. The variable up the top, name and age, are set, but they don't contain anything. So now what we want to do is say and not empty. So remember this keyword, we can say not equal to, but we're going to say is not empty name and is not empty age. So essentially we're checking if the variables are set first of all, then we're checking if the name isn't empty, meaning it doesn't equal null, so it doesn't equal nothing, and we're checking that the age is set as well. So for example, let's just open up our page, and we go back to our index.php page. We click submit, nothing happens. We don't have anything shown here, but we do have the variable set. Now what we can do is we can produce an error if they're not set. So we can say please type something. In actual fact, what this will do is it will automatically say please type something. So please type something there. So I wouldn't regard it as an error message. If I click submit, it's still going to say please type something. I'm going to type Alex and 21, and then our conditions are successfully met, so we produce the sentence. Now with this problem, if we just look back at this, we've got name and age, and it's still saying please type something. So what we can do is, in actual fact, we can take this portion of it and we can put it inside a nested if statement. So I'm going to say if not empty and not empty name and not empty age. I'm going to create a new block. So let's just neaten this up a bit so you can see what's happening. So what's happening is the first check is if each of them are set. Otherwise, we're going to echo. In fact, let's change this around. Okay, so we'll get rid of that for now. Okay, so if these aren't set, we're not going to produce anything because we don't have an else after this this block. But if we create an else after this block, saying, for example, nothing entered, the way this works now is that we check whether it's set. So if it's present, the name and the age. If it's not present, we just don't display anything because this is the end of the block. Then, if it is set, we take this whole block here, which is an if-else statement, and we say if empty name or not empty name and not empty age, we echo out that. Otherwise, we say nothing entered. So now you can see the way this works. If we just refresh, nothing's displayed. If I click submit, it will say nothing entered. If I type my name in now and click submit, it gives us the sentence. So that's basically the get array in short. Now the get array obviously has its disadvantages. It can only process a limited amount of data. So for example, if you had a website that say asked a user to enter a 5,000 word essay, and you used get to send this to say a database or process it through this method here by putting it into the URL, some browsers or web servers don't actually, will have limits. In fact, all of them will have limits. So you're going to have a truncation of data, so you're going to have a cutoff of data. For this, you're going to need to have the post variable, which I have another tutorial on, so you can go and check that out. And this basically allows you to send hidden data, so this will be hidden up here. So it's better for things like login forms, etc., or data that you don't want to be seen in the URL, and also for sort of an endless amount of data. There's probably is some upper limit, but it will send a lot of data. Anyway, obviously when you're dealing with file uploads, it's a bit different. But yeah, post is the other option for this, and I do have another tutorial on that. But for now, this is the get array.